the NBA playoffs have not provided the drama that we would have wanted them to, but they've provided a lot of lessons that we have been able to learn so far, and none more clear than last night as the Cleveland Cavaliers whoop that ass and beat up on the Miami Heat. It is a 55-point loss to end the Miami Heat's season. And there's the joke, like, it like, 1, 2, 3 Cancun. It's like, how much more Cancun do you want? You're in Miami. But like Barkley was saying, like, you got to leave town after this. After those losses that you're suffering on your home court, you gotta leave town. You gotta just get out of there. You know what? Go the opposite. Like, go up to the Yukon or Alaska if you want to stay USA and all that. Because this has just been, it's embarrassing for the Miami Heat. And I know a lot of people had a lot of jokes about Heat culture until they made a run to the championship. I think we can kind of pause Heat culture for at least a year. I think when you lose by almost 100 points in 2 games on your home court to close your season, I don't think you get to brag about your culture for at least a year. That feels like that should be the rule, that you just don't get to do that. Because this was embarrassing, a complete embarrassment from the Miami Heat to not be ready to go in that way. And look, they are so clearly the second most talented team in this series, right? Like, Cleveland is awesome. And credit Cleveland, because they just came out and a complete performance. And I think they recognized what they had. And they recognized how breakable this team was. But again, if teams are recognizing that about you, can't be bragging about your culture. Can't do it. Sorry, you just don't get to for at least a year. You have to take a pause on that. An abysmal performance from Miami on their home floor. And Eric Spoelstra, with the quote after saying, like, this was eye-opening. This was humbling. Miami has to treat this as such. The fact that they were able to get into the playoffs after the Jimmy Butler situation and everything like that, like, it is a credit to them. And I do think, while I'm having some fun with the Heat culture thing, I do think that the culture of this team is set in a really good way. The problem is the talent isn't. And there is a substantial gap right now between them and the high-level teams in the Eastern Conference. Like, this just, it wasn't close. And you look at the rest of the playoff teams right now. Orlando, who's probably getting ousted tonight. I think that as these two teams are set up, maybe Miami gives Orlando a run for their money, but that's because Orlando's hurt. And they're missing Jalen Suggs. And you just plug that back in, and I think they roll them. And then the Milwaukee is going through it right now. But I still think, like, a 7-game series, I think Milwaukee wins that. And then, like, no one, like the Pistons, look at how the Pistons are battling. That was not there in Miami. So the Heat do, I think, need to take a real hard look at what is happening with them right now and see where they can get this thing back on track. Because again, ugly the other night. Or last night, sorry. And Cleveland, again, credit to them. They weren't messing around and just dominated. Donovan Mitchell, fantastic performance. Allen, getting the steal there early, getting up in the dunk. Like, all the guys stepping up. Mobley, now that he has that 3-point game down again, he can use that. I think he is more comfortable attacking, and Miami just didn't recognize that and just like, oh yeah, attack, go for it, whatever. Offensively for Miami, like, Hero is great, but and part of it, I do think, like, I think Spoelstra is one of the best coaches in the league and criminally underrated. When you have, like, a team kind of based around one guy, and then that guy doesn't want to be there anymore, but you don't get anything for him for a while, and then at the trade deadline, all of a sudden you got a bunch of new guys coming in, and you have to try to implement them. It's tough to kind of figure out where your offense is going to go. So I do think now having an offseason that maybe is a bit more settled, although in Miami maybe it won't be, but an offseason's a little bit more settled and seeing where everyone fits in, I think that this is going to be a valuable offseason for Miami and a really, really, really important one for them. But the Cavs are off to the next round. They will play the winner of the Pacers-Bucks series, I believe. Right? Yeah. They'll play the winner of the Pacers-Bucks series coming up here in just a little bit. Knicks-Pistons. They meet tonight after an absolute thriller of a weekend. And I think, like, if you are a Pistons fan, it's house money at this point, right? Like, they are getting so much out of their young players and stepping up in big-time ways here that has been very, very very, I think, fruitful for Detroit on down the road. Over on the kick chat. Suzanne Tucker. Hey, what's up? Talking sports. Happy to have you along. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Right now, we're talking about the Pistons and the Knicks. Yes, I think valuable learning experience here for Detroit. But while you're in it, you kind of want to win it. And that was a heartbreaker for them on Saturday night on Sunday afternoon. To lose in that way is really difficult. And look, Cade Cunningham has had predictable ebbs and flows in this series, but I do think there is a leveling up to his game that is happening now. Now that he's more comfortable in this spot, now that the bright lights of the playoffs aren't too much, I do think that there is a leveling up in his game. And now look, Detroit, I still think are going into every game a little bright-eyed with everything, right? Like a little bit like, oh my God, it's the playoffs. We got to get off to here we go. And then all of a sudden they're down by 10 right away. They have had some tough starts in these games. And then once they settle in, they battle back in a very important way and leads to a bit of a sprint to the finish. And in one game it happened where they were able to come back and get it. In this one, it almost did. And in a couple, they weren't. So there's an inexperience here with them. But I again, it is all still a heartbreaker for them. And they were one make away, Hardaway in the corner away, or even Cade getting that look in the paint on a jump shot. They are one that away from having the series being evened up. Instead, now you're going back to Madison Square Garden, which is a home court advantage, and facing elimination. It's a lot to overcome for this young team, but some real big moments for these guys. And the Tim Hardaway season of his life, series of his life. Also, when they said year 12 for Tim Hardaway Jr., I said maybe it's because it's junior. I still view him as kind of new. Look at him being plucked, and he's a 35-year-old guy now. So that one, it just made me feel a little bit old, but he is kind of having the series of his life so far and has been everything that the Pistons need from him. On the Knicks side, I do think you can be a little bit concerned. Because it does, they're going to be facing the Celtics in the next round, presumably. I do think you have to be a little bit worried about how the Pistons are battling back in all of these games. Credit all the credit to Detroit. But I feel like they wouldn't be battling back in this way against the Celtics or the Cavs, right? And that is the level that the Knicks want to be getting to. And they're not that. And so that they have done some good things to win these games. And credit goes to them for that one. But when we're talking about leveling up here, the Knicks just haven't. And so I do think you have to be a little bit concerned about how well the Pistons have been able to hang around and how tough it has been for New York to put these games away. I do think, though, that there are some positives to take away from the New York Knickerbockers in this. I do think Karl Anthony Towns showing up in the way that he has is very valuable. And he has earned a lot of criticism over the years, talking about I'm the best shooting big man of all time, as if we didn't just watch Dirk Nowitzki be a thing for most of our lives. And I mean, we can talk about who's a big man or what, but KD is 7 feet tall. So it's a hilarious claim. I do also think this guy has just dealt with a lot of adversity in his NBA time. Jimmy Butler calls him out on his shit a lot when they're in Minnesota there, and you have that whole thing play out the way that it does. And then there is a lot of personal tragedy that Karl Anthony Towns had to play through. And I do think that a lot of guys would get a little bit more credit for that, but because Towns has a tendency to be a little bit cringy anyway, and was kind of bordering on that. Is he living up to what we thought he was going to be? Is he not? What is he? What isn't he? I think that it was a little bit easy for some people to just be like, well, it's just him anyway. He has been great in this series, and it's a series that is set up for him to be great in. It's a matchup that he can handle really well, whether it's if it's Jalen Duren with drop coverage, he can hit a three over top of that. If they want to put Tobias Harris in his face, he is just bigger and stronger than Harris is, and he's kind of just ran right through him. So it's a series where it is set up for him to look good, but I do think, again, when we talk about leveling up, I think that Cat has in a little bit, and is someone that you can genuinely trust as a number 2 option on your team. Now, stupid fouls have to stop, and he still takes one of those a game. But there's a lot with him that I think has been really great, and a bit of a leveling up there. And man, Bridges stepping up with a couple of key shots late in that game. He has needed that because he is He is not living up to that hype and not living up to the deal that we talked about at the beginning of the year when he comes in for 5 first-round picks. And I was like, you just make that trade because this makes you a championship contender. The way he is playing is not. And he has to, again, level up to be able to find his way now and help the Knicks find their way into championship contention, or else he's going to find his way, into a lot of trade conversations, because there's going to be that about Milwaukee, who we'll talk about in a minute, and there's going to be that around the Phoenix Suns, which would be quite the full circle moment for him. But his name is going to come up in a lot of trade discussions if the Knicks are looking to get into that championship caliber, unless he can find that in the next couple of games. Tonight, the best series of the first round continues with the Nuggets taking on the Clippers. You get a thriller on Saturday with the Aaron Gordon dunk. This has been a brilliant chess match. And now, this is where I think these series get a lot of fun. It's 2-2, and everything's been adjusted for, right? Like, okay, we see what you're doing. We see how you're trying to counter what we're doing, and now we see how you have tried to counter our counters. There's no more counters left. Now it is just who is better, and we still don't really know who is better in these. Jokic, again, just simple brilliance from him, and I still think where their advantage is getting a little bit more size on the interior. If you can get Zubats out of there, let Gordon and MPJ, who's obviously dealing with it right now, but let those guys kind of be a little bit more bullies on the offensive glass, that I think goes a long way. But they need Murray to step up. They need Westbrook to just mind his P's and Q's. Like they need all of their guys to play at their highest level, because they only really have 6 guys, you know? And that depth area of the the Clippers, while not maybe a strength that you would view of them against some other teams, but like Kawhi is going. Harden is playing some of the best playoff basketball he has played, but you have to expect at some point that's going to falter. But then it's the other guy. Zubats is having a hell of a series, especially defensively. Powell has made some really big shots, and the backbreaker has been Batum coming in, and he'll just hit a couple of shots, and I don't know why, but it feels like every shot he makes is worth 7, because it just feels like that guy. Like we had this possession stopped. Now we can add to our lead, and then that guy is the one who is making the shots and killing us right now. That hasn't happened for the Nuggets yet. They haven't had that guy moment really at all in this series, and they are going to need that. But again, that is the thing we talked about this whole time, is that Denver has not built up their depth well enough, and KCP probably isn't playing well enough to have justified that contract. And Bruce Brown probably was overpaid when he left for free agency and then got traded to Toronto, but that doesn't mean then you just fill that with nothing. And they have, I think, kind of wasted this and made this a much more difficult series with Jokic than it needed to be, and a much more difficult season with Jokic than it needed to be. Moving into the other series here that could wrap up tonight, you have the Milwaukee Bucks on the brink against the Pacers. I have a feeling we're going to be having some off-season discussions about the Bucks here pretty quick, so I'm not going to get into the full discussion about it today, but obviously there's going to be a lot of conversations about where do the Bucks go now, with Dame Lillard out probably till around Christmas time next year with a torn Achilles. We have so many examples of, okay, he's going to come back, let's say January, he comes back. So 30, 40 games to go at that point. How many times have we seen guys in their mid to late 30s just come back from an Achilles injury and be perfectly fine? It's probably not, like, next year feels like just a complete write-off from a Dame perspective. And then so that gives us the 26-27 season is when this team, I think, can really rely on him again. And then he's going to be like 37, 38 years old. Like, this feels like the end now for the Bucks. And the problem is they don't have their picks for the next little while, because they have just been trying to add and try to get these pieces to extend the life of this Giannis window. And it sucks because he is playing so well, and everything going on around it, like part of it is like SGA and Jokic just had like A+ level seasons. Part of it is like, I think, a little bit of fatigue, because Milwaukee is right around the middle of the standings. They're not going too high up. They're not going too high down. It's not a disaster, so we're not focusing on it a lot. But Giannis is having a stretch of some of the best basketball you will ever see in your entire life. And there's just no help around him. There's some dude out there named Green who's making some shots who I had never really heard of until this, but there's just not enough around him. And he is going to have to do it all by himself in these games. to get them into even a game 6. They're not good enough as situated. And honestly, like, Lillard comes in and gives them a bit of a spark, but after that, like, there's just not a whole lot there. Swig of water for the workman. There's just not enough there right now in Milwaukee. And so we talked about it all series. The offense is really hard for this team to come by. And now defensively, which was the hallmark of how good these teams were when they were good, now defensively it's fallen off too much. And so they're just in a bad spot. And it feels like this is the end now of this kind of a run. And again, we'll talk about it later on. But I do also want to, again, give some credit to the Pacers. Because I feel like last season, they injuries happen and all that, and all of a sudden they find themselves in the conference finals. And everyone is talking about them like they're Portland from a few years ago or Atlanta from a couple of years ago, where it's like, okay, we always get one in the conference finals that doesn't really deserve to be here, and that's them. But this team has leveled up this season. I'm using that phrase a lot here, but this team has grown this season, specifically on the defensive side. And look, when you are a Rick Carlisle team, eventually that's going to break through. But like, they were a run and gun offensive team last year, and a brilliant offensive team. And that led them to, again, conference finals. But I do think if you want it to be a little bit more sustainable, and we talked about this at the time, that defense has to get better. And it did. Halliburton, I think, is a good defensive player. Miles Turner can be a good rim protector. Siakam can be an average defensive player. At his height, he can defend pretty well. But they just, the effort they have on the defensive side, the turnovers they are able to create, and then how quickly they are able to counter off of that has been really effective. And now part of it is they have a very efficient and effective offense, and that just lets, they get buckets a lot. And so you can then set up in your regular half-court defense and everything is fine. But how aggressive they have been in forcing turnovers has been a big part of this series. And then, like, offensively, it's wild how good this team can be. And, like, I don't even think we've had a real dominant Halliburton performance yet. Like, I feel like Halliburton has been able to kind of bide his time, hit his big shots when he needs to, and have these big kind of moments. But Turner is hitting shots. Siakam is playing great. Nembhard might be the best player on the Pacers anyway this series. Giannis is the best player in this series with how he is playing. It's just overlooked because his team's losing by 40. But Nembhard is up there. He has been brilliant offensively. And so it's a tough team to play. And now they're going to get Cleveland in the next round. And Cleveland should be favored in the next round. But this Pacers team, I don't think it should be overlooked how good they are. And I'm fascinated to see how they handle that juggernaut out in Cleveland. Not going to go too in-depth on this one. The series feels over tonight. Boston against Orlando. The Celtics are simply better. Nothing about this series has really changed how you feel about any of it. Boston probably shoots too many threes, which means they probably miss too many threes. But aside from that, they are a very good defensive team going up against a very good defensive team, but they're a very good offensive team going up against a very bad offensive team in the Orlando Magic. And the Magic, I think, are going to be thrown into a lot of trade rumors and everything like that. They just simply need more offense. And maybe it's just a better offensive system or whatever it is, but they need on offense is basically the best way to say it, because it's ugly on the offensive side. And then
I'm having trouble hearing you.
Sorry. Gosh, I got to figure out a different phrase for SERIES. But in this matchup, it's been too good for, or it's just been too bad, sorry, on the offense for Orlando. So they, I think, are done. I think they're done in that sense here tonight. So again, it's a season, kind of a lost season for the Magic. That defense is elite, and Banchero is awesome. They just need one more piece, and that piece might just be like an offensive coordinator to get this team to the next level. The big storyline from the weekend in the NBA was the devastating loss for the Lakers on home court this weekend. They had a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter against the Minnesota Timberwolves, a chance to wrap it up on home court, go back up even 2-2, and have not on home court. But either way, you have a chance to go back home and have home court advantage in 2 of the next 3 games, where you only need to win 2 of the next 3 games and be able to take it there. And instead, they messed it up. And I do think they messed it up. We'll credit Minnesota in a second, but this one is on JJ Redick, I think. We know, and we talked about it a bit on the hockey side, for those watching the live stream, we know that there is a a desperation this time of year. And okay, we need to shorten our bench. And in basketball, you tighten that rotation up from 10, 11 guys to 8 guys, and then maybe down to 7 or 6. You don't tighten it down to 5 for a full half, though. And so I get, like, it's desperation time. You want your best guys out on the floor that whole time. But you want your best guys to be at their best at the end. And so while LeBron James is a miracle of modern science and is still getting chased down blocks at the age of 40 whatever in year 22, he was obviously begged because he didn't get a break the entire fourth quarter. So I just think it was a tactical error from JJ Redick there. And look, they end up losing by, 3 points? And so you could say, well, look, we needed 3 extra points. We needed our big guys out there. But I just think, even if you just give him a minute or two, it just at the start or end of each half, just to get him a little bit of extra time out on the sideline, a little bit of extra time to just sit and recoup, it just, I think this game goes a little bit differently. So yeah, you can go with your main guys that whole time. And look, like Jackson Hayes has felt a little unplayable in this series, but I don't care if you put Bronny out there. You just need to let these guys sit and chill for a second to get their legs back under them when you are playing the intensity of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Again, we talked about it with the LA King, a tough thing for LA teams, apparently. We talked about this on the hockey side, where the speed and skill of Edmonton means that you have to roll all 4 of your lines against LA because that is exhausting to play against. It's the same thing here for the Lakers. The speed, skill, and the size and physicality that Minnesota can play with Edwards, with Gobert, who's not an offensive dynamo in this series, but he'll wear on you, he'll lean on you, with Naz Reid, who will make you work, with Julius Randle, who's having the season of a lifetime, or a series of the lifetime so far. You have to have these guys be freshened up because they're just getting beaten up out there. And so you could see it. They wore down. They didn't have the legs that Minnesota had, and it ended up costing them. So while I think the world of JJ Redick as a coach, I think he's actually going to be a very good coach, this was a mistake. This was a miss by him in this particular one. And the frustrating part of it is, like, Reeves did not have a great game. Reeves was having a tough time getting away from any of the defense from Minnesota. But Rui was having a great game. And so I felt like I think there's a way you can stagger the minutes, and they did it all regular season, that you can stagger the minutes. You have one of Luka or LeBron out on the court at all times. And generally it was Luka and the bench, and then LeBron, Reeves, and others. And then going with it that way. But there was you could have gone, I think you would have been just fine with Luka, Rui, and even Finney-Smith and a couple of other guys for a couple of minutes with how well Rui was playing in that game. Like, he gave you that opportunity as that strong fourth guy to let you rest LeBron for a couple of minutes. We're not talking about half of a quarter here. We're talking about a couple extra minutes to get him a little bit of a blow, to let him come back and be at the peak of his powers for these games. And now it's desperate for them as they're down 3-1 in this series against a Minnesota team that is rolling. And this felt like a big moment for the Timberwolves franchise. And I get they made it to the Western Conference Finals last year after beating the defending champions in the playoff round, but this felt like another legacy win for Anthony Edwards, who was just fantastic again. And the fact that he has added that 3-point shot to his repertoire, there was a lot of that coming into the draft, his draft year, that, okay, he's an athletic guy, he's going to be able to attack the rim, he's going to be just kind of this slasher, crash, bang, boom guy. But you can see that the next level of it, and this is what you always want from your stars. The God-given abilities are obviously there. The physical gifts are obviously there. But that work ethic is so obviously there. And that is what makes him so dangerous and so great, is that he has worked to get better on the defensive end, to be one of the better defenders in the NBA. And now he has worked at that 3-point shot to make him one of the scariest offensive players to play in the NBA. And he has shown it up in the most effective ways in this. And so again, another addition to the legacy of Anthony Edwards. And this series has been amazing for the reputation of Julius Randle. This has been hey, where was this ever with Julius Randle. He has not been that ball stopper that, at times, he has not been that ball stopper that he has always been in his career. He has been effective shooting, and it's his attacking that has really opened things up a little bit, because now you got to be aware of it. Now you got to be ready that he's going to attack you instead of just, I want to be a spot up shooter all day. Now he has been that guy, and he has fit in with this offense so very effectively. And so, like, look, you can't just rest LeBron out on him now. He is attacking, he is making him work, and he has been great. And then Naz Reid, I think that the stat still holds that he hasn't missed one shot in the fourth quarter of these games so far. He has been that dog defensively as well. And like that final possession where Luka is coming up and Redick is screaming on a possession before for someone to screen for Luka so he can get free a little bit. Well, okay, that screen comes, but Reid follows it all the way up there, and he puts that he switches onto him, and he does a fantastic job of at least letting or forcing Luka to get the ball out of his hands. They swing it over to Reeves, who again was cold. He misses the three, and the game is over. It is just because a lot of guys, you see a screen going up there that high, it's like, okay, that's one of the best players in the world out there in Luka Doncic. I'm gonna hang back. I'm not about to show up on a TikTok getting my ankles crossed over by this guy. So I'm going to hang back a little bit. Instead, he is right in his face. He adds to the pressure of the situation and forces the ball out of Luka's hands. And while Reeves is a very good option, that's still the third option in the Laker offense. And so I think A, JJ needed to be ready for that, and B, fantastic work from Naz Reid to get to there. But just a big moment for the Minnesota Timberwolves.